Newshouse.com. We're going to continue our conversation here with Cabinet Secretary for Defense Aden Duale. We've been talking about everything from recruitment to national security, and you're talking about the situation in the North Rift. And the fact that, in fact, the question I was going to ask you is, once KDF leaves there, what's going to happen? But you're explaining there's some bases that are going to be set up.
In fact, we're not leaving, and people are telling us not to leave. And because, you know, the Constitution doesn't allow us to say they are dealing with an internal conflict, once we are done with our business, we have to get out. Mm-hmm. Now, so that we don't come back again from very far, we want to establish our training camps and our bases in the north. Like Turkana, Lodwar town, we are putting up, in fact, a whole FOB for our Air Force wing. So that we have Manda, we have Wajir, we have Turkana in key areas.
And FOB is forward operating base?
Yes, yes. Just like the way we have over 14 along the border with Somalia. But if you allow me, today there was an incident in Garissa where I think 6 guys were shot and killed. Yeah. I really want to send my condolences to the families of the bereaved. But I want to ask the security agents in Garissa, the multi-agents, that they have a responsibility to bring the perpetrators to book. We have heavily invested in our security sector, whether it is the intelligence, whether it is the KDF, whether it is the police, whether it is the criminal investigation department. We can't have a situation where a gang, a group, whether they are clan militia, whether they are terrorists, whether they are armed groups, come and kill 6 people, and then you are the head of that area, and you are not telling us where are the people who committed the crime. Mm. But let me come back to North Rift, because we realize that in all the successive governments, the solution they had for the insecurity in North Rift was short-term, short-lived. They go fix it, and they come back. Then they leave the area. This government administration, the president said, we must fix this place, and we must fix it for the long term. What do? All these spaces you are seeing, the roads are bad. There are no provisions of water, the dams, the boreholes. The children don't go to school because of even drought and lack of food. Yeah. You know, there are good places you can do irrigation in the Kerio Valley. So there is a whole package that has been passed by the National Security Council, a Marshall Plan, with an initial budget of about $2 billion. Now we are reconstructing and renovating and building new schools. Today, if you go to Capedo High School, for example, you'll see the numbers have increased. All the primary schools that were closed 6 months ago, you can go and check. Students are coming back. And we are providing food. So even under the Marshall Plan, the schools we are going to build, which mainly will be boarding schools, government will provide food from January to December. So that as the pastoralists go around with their goats and sheep and camels, the children can remain in school. But one thing I want you to take it home, Jeff. This administration under President Ruto will fix, among many other issues, will fix the insecurity in North Rift and pick this day and this time.
I will follow it up with you next time we meet. Yes. Okay, let me ask you another question.
And I'll share with you that document, that Marshall Plan.
Thank you.
Once the cabinet approves next week. And I'm sure it's going to be a big story in the country.
Yeah. Yes. Lamu. Why is Lamu so difficult to pacify?
Absolutely. A very, very good question. It's because, number one, because of Boni Forest. We have a forest that cuts across 2 countries. Half of Garissa County, the whole of Lamu County, and a bigger chunk of Somalia. And you know the situation in Somalia. Yeah. I mean, since 1990. So this is a so thick forest that even our surveillance equipment cannot penetrate to find out what is going down there. It can only give us movements. So most of these terror groups, that has become their hiding site. We have enough security presence in that area. From our special teams, SOG, the special teams of KDF, the GSU, the police were there. So we want to assure the people of Kenya that that area today we cannot say our people are vulnerable. Secondly,
but wait, yet they keep hitting Lamu.
Yes, but in fact, the number of terror attacks including yesterday, that we foil, because we don't say that we foil, and we save lives and property, is more in terms of frequency than is isolated. Two, the only weapon of choice that has remained with Al-Shabaab now is IUD along the road.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And now, as the last weapon of choice, we have to now deal with how and put strategies on how to deal with that. That's why we have the special forces there. That's why now our forces will not even use the vehicle. That's why we want to modernize and get anti-IED APCs in the next 2 months, a part of the serious modernization going on both in the National Police Service and in KDF. Thirdly, we have enhanced our intelligence in that area. But what the people don't understand is that forest called Boni Forest. Secondly, and I think tonight I have an opportunity to talk to our people in Lamu, particularly more the agricultural farmers. Please don't go to the forest. Don't be enticed by looking for land. The moment we deal with and finish these few remnants in Boni Forest, you'll have plenty of land. There's plenty of land. But you know, we have isolated homesteads and villages, and you can't man all this landscape. And this is the frustration myself and Professor Kindiki and many others in the leadership. But we are talking to the governor, we are talking to the leadership, we are telling them you must leave proximity where our security forces are. But I can tell you, our operations inside Somalia, our operations along the border, our operations inside Kenya, in the war against terror, it has never been before the way we have upscaled it now.
And yet you admit that Boni Forest is so thick and almost impenetrable. Do you want to say that you want to admit failure on this show, that you failed to flush out the terrorists?
That's why I'm telling you, we have got our special forces inside Boni Forest.
And yet you can't flush out the terrorists?
But you look at the incidents. I told you the incidents, the isolated incidents you're seeing, compared to the plan and the kind of casualties and damage and killings these evil terrorists want to do. You cannot imagine. You go to other countries. And we must thank the men and women in uniform, in all our formations, who some of them have sacrificed their lives in the line of duty. We must see that. I can tell you, as a Minister for Defense, we have the capability to deter, to protect our people. Just like the way you have incident insecurity in the area. Like the incident you had last week, the kind of damage they wanted to cause before our team intercepted is so huge. So we are very, very happy. We have not reached where we are. Our goal is to make sure that we keep, not only in Kenya, but we deal with Al-Shabaab and all terror networks inside Somalia. And now we are very, very happy. For the first time, the government in Somalia, the president in Somalia, as we speak today, is in the forefront in one of the regions in Somalia, himself leading his troops against Al-Shabaab. So we have a committed government. Our partners, our international partners in the war against terror, we are working with them very, very well.
So you think you'll be successful in the end with Al-Shabaab?
I have no job. I mean, I should not be in this job if we will not succeed on the war against Al-Shabaab. We will succeed. And look at me in the eyes properly. We will succeed. I have no another job. I have no business. That's why you don't see me in the devolution conference.
Yeah. Despite the fact that they're blowing us up every now and then with the IEDs that you mentioned, improvised explosive devices.
I think, go back to the numbers. In the last 1.5 months, from Mandera to Lamu, the numbers are very insignificant. But we must reduce it. We should not have an incident. We should not have a Kenyan losing his life because of terror. We should not have Kenyans losing their property. Kenyans, even, not only Kenyans, even our visitors, our friends. Kenya must be free of Al-Shabaab. But you know the whole architecture of terror. How they communicate, how they move. We must also change our strategy.
Residents of Lamu, many of them living in fear. What do you tell them today? What do you tell them now?
No, in fact, next week we're going, myself and Professor Kindiki. our teams at the Defense Headquarters, and I'm sure the same our teams at the National Police Service. 24/7, we are on top of things going on in Lamu. But I want to urge the people of Lamu that they have a responsibility to flush out the few terror cells living among the community. The communities have a role to play. If they don't flush them out, we will flush them out ourselves. Because we have the capability and the capacity and the intelligence to find who is collaborating with the terror networks. But I think for the sake of our national security, communities, religious leaders, women and youth, in Lamu and in every part of Kenya, even here in Nairobi, they have a responsibility to be part and parcel of our national security and safety conversation.
Absolutely. Let's go to Somalia. Last time you were here on the bench, yes, I asked you this very same question. How much longer after Operation Linda Inji, which was what, October 2011, right?
Yes.
A dozen years later,
yes,
we're still in Somalia.
Yes.
52 billion shillings spent, according to a report in the newspapers the other day,
yes,
on weapons and other equipments. 52 billion in a dozen years.
That is not even factual.
Is that too little?
Yes. No. I think we are not in Somalia as KDF. Let me start from there. We're in Somalia before us under the UN and the AU, AMISOM, that again transited to ATMIS along the Somali Transitional Plan. But we're not in Somalia for a picnic. We're not in Somalia to go and enjoy at the beach in Mogadishu and Kismayo. We're in Somalia for two major reasons. One, we're in Somalia to protect the national security interests of the Republic of Kenya and its people. You know the history why we went to Somalia, after the various abduction of tourists and everything. Yeah. So for us to protect our national security interests, that's why we're in Somalia. Secondly, we are in Somalia as part of our moral duty to be part and parcel of the regional peace and security within the Horn of Africa. Article 248, sub-article 8A, if you read the UN Charter, if you read the EACA articles, if you read AU, those articles mandate the Kenya security and also Kenya Defense Forces to participate when called upon to be part and parcel in maintaining law and order within our region. But when are we leaving? The drawdown has started. And that has been decided by the UN Security Council. June this year, all the troop contributing countries, Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, Burundi, Djibouti, 5 of us, we were under mandate by the UN Security Council and AU to draw down 2,000 troops. Kenya 400, Uganda 400, Burundi 650, Ethiopia 400, and Djibouti 150. We have closed one of our FOB in Somalia. We are back. This September, 3,000 troops from all these contributing countries will draw down from Somalia. By December 2024, no more ATMIS, not only Kenya, will be in Somalia. But for us, because of our national security interests, we're coming out of Somalia because the UN, AU, the Somali government felt they have generated enough force. Their Somali National Army is ready to protect their country. But as we will come back to our Baba zones along the border of the 800, to make sure that in the event Al-Shabaab becomes more stronger, we will still protect our people. All 800 kilometers? Oh yes, as we speak now, we have closed about 14 FOBs along the border, from Kyungu to Mandera, border point 2. If it means increasing, we will increase. Because the function why taxpayers are funding Kenya Defense Forces is primarily to protect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of our country. That's right. We'll do the same if we have a problem with South Sudan, same if we have a problem with the border in Uganda, the same the border we have with the Indian Ocean. So we are living in Somalia, but we are not there in Somalia. You know, there are people, and we are not in Somalia as Kenya Defense Forces. We are part of a multinational UN African Union force that graduated from AMISOM to ATMIS.
Let's go to DRC.
Yes.
You were there recently.
Oh, yeah.
And the operation there.
In DRC, we have 3 different groups of Kenya Defense Forces. We have our quick reaction force, about 200 to 300 men of our special force, serving under the UN stabilization program of the DRC. It's called MONUSCO.
MONUSCO.
And they have been there. Tanzania is there, South Africa, Nepal, Bangladesh, many countries, Brazil. The force commander is a Brazilian general. We are there, and that the mandate lies with the UN. Then we have a section of Kenya Defense Forces from our training institutions. And that's why I went to DRC Goma to go and sign a training bilateral agreement with the Minister for Defense and the Deputy Prime Minister, my colleague Pemba. That program is called Kenya Military Assistant Training Program, KMAT. Just like the way we trained Rwandan forces at the initial stage, the way we offer training to Namibia, to many of the countries, African countries, we are training DRC, the FRDC forces at a place called Kisangani. So the first 890 who are graduating is where me and my colleague Pemba went to visit. The next group is coming in. So we are exporting our doctrine, we are exporting our training, not only to DRC, to where we are called off. And Kenya, so why were we signing? We were signing because there are certain values of professionalism, integrity, ethics, and doctrine that Kenya Defense Forces must comply with, and they have complied with, as per our Constitution and as per our Act. So that in the event, who are we training? They must be vetted. We don't train militias. We don't train people who have. And then when we train you, you must go and now live like a proper professional soldier. So that's why we have to say we have to sign something. This is our checklist. So that was, it really disturbed us at the defense headquarters that we had to do that. Secondly, then we are under the aircraft. That's the big story. The East Africa community, which DRC joined last year, under President Uhuru, former President Uhuru Kenyatta. In July of last year, in the summit, heads of states agreed to deploy an East Africa regional force to Eastern DRC, also South and North Kivu. We were the first to deploy about a battalion. The force commander was a Kenyan and still a Kenyan. The other countries were Uganda, South Sudan, and Burundi. Now we are all together in the theater. What have we achieved? Before we went there, and I'm sure you can get your clips, of the many armed groups in DRC, there is the M23, and you're aware. The M23 were about 7 kilometers to Goma City. Goma City, you have been there.
Yes.
It's a huge commercial city.
Correct.
Goma City is supplied, it gets supplies from the port of Mombasa. So Goma City was to fall. So we went there, we secured Goma. 2, the main supply routes, the MSRs, were closed by these different armed groups. Today, all the supply routes are opened. All the humanitarian assistance is moving properly. A lot of the IDPs, particularly in Kibumba, many Kenyan forces people are slowly going back to their farms. You'll find a lot of human casualties, rape and all these things have stopped. Now we are at the stage where we are opening up the pre-cantonment sites, where M23 and the other armed groups need to go and surrender their arms, and they become part of the rehabilitation agreed. So we still have some commotions there. Yeah. All this we are doing to support the political track of reconciliation, which is being chaired by President Uhuru Kenyatta. So ours was just like a safeguard, make sure people's lives are saved. And we pray, a stable Congo is good for the Kenyan economy. You'll find Equity Bank has a huge presence.
That's right.
KCB has a huge presence. Yeah. The port of Mombasa There are many Kenyans who are in that. So a stable and a peaceful DRC, a stable Uganda, a stable Kenya, a stable Tanzania, all these countries together, a population of about 350, is good for our region.
Is the EAC going to renew that mission, going to renew the deal?
A number of times. The renewal is done by the heads of state and government summit. And the expiry is on 8th of September. We have a meeting. The summit formed what they call the monitoring and evaluation team to go and assess the achievements of aircraft. They're going to table to the Council of Chief of Defense Forces on the 20th. On 21st to 23rd, the defense ministers from EAC will meet in Nairobi. I will host them. They will prepare, and then there will be an extraordinary heads of state summit around 30th. If the summit agree to extend, we'll be there. If the summit says no, we will pull our troops. If the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the Republic of Kenya, feels in his wisdom that we have no other more business in DRC, we will withdraw. If the DRC government says, gentlemen, we're happy with you, take your bags and go, we have all the logistics. Our troops will be here in 7 days.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
we have a moral duty as an anchor state. And that's why you see the UN and the US is saying Kenya should go to Haiti and lead. We used to be number 4 in peacekeeping and security restoration in the world.
Number 4?
Yes. And now we are at number 43. So in between something happened, and that's why me and the colleagues at the Defense Headquarters, we have just passed the peace fund regulations. Kenya is known for its peacekeeping from Yugoslavia. We want to take back Kenya to its role as an anchor state, its role as a peacekeeping force, not only in Africa, but in the world.
Absolutely. Bonasias, we're going to keep tracks of you, huh? We'll keep tabs with what you're doing.
Please have a performance contract with me. I've just signed one with the president.
Fantastic.
So, I mean, you're part of you are the citizens' watchdog.
Correct.
Please.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
All the very best.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Wow, that's Cabinet Secretary for Defense Aden Duale. A lot of information there, talking about defense in the country and out of the country as well. And he says at the end of the day, the homeland.
There's only one thing
safe.
that, if you allow me, I've forgotten.
Go on.
That this administration promised that they're going to modernize the Kenya Defense
military,
Forces.
yes.
Both Air Force, the Army, the Navy, our special forces, our cyber security. And I want to tell the people of Kenya, by December, we will have very protected, modernized equipments arriving in our country so that our teams battling Al-Shabaab will never be victims of IEDs, will never be victims of VBIDs, and all the other small choice of weapon that the terror group uses.
We'll keep track of that. And you keep track of it as well. It's up to you, folks. We're going to take a break. Come back. Lieutenant General Jonah Mwangi, the Vice Chair of Kenya Defense Forces, will be on the bench. And also, pretty much a lot of news we still haven't gotten through. So stay with us. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag.